All right, well, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump meeting there on the tarmac in Anchorage, Alaska, while specifics remain under wraps. The Trump administration racing to lock in a meeting between President Zelensky and President Putin. Joining us now is the Deputy White House Press Secretary, Anna Kelly, who is making her debut here on America Reports. And Anna, it's good to speak with you this afternoon.
Great to be here.
All right. So it would appear right out of the box that Russia is slow walking this process. Sergei Lavrov, who is the Russian foreign minister and probably attached at the hip to Vladimir Putin more than any other official in Russia, is saying, well, wait a minute here. This needs to be a step-by-step process. We need to begin at the expert level for discussions before we elevate it to a principles discussion. What does the president think about that? It seems to me that he wants to get this process underway as quickly as possible.
Well, John, I'd say you're exactly right, of course. I'd love to take you all back because, remember, this president was invited or asked by President Putin to have this meeting back in Alaska last Friday. Just 48 hours later, he was able to welcome 7 European leaders here at the White House alongside President Zelensky to talk about these historic peace efforts. And I'll add, it's only because of this president's leadership, by the way, that we're having any of these conversations. This war was started by Joe Biden's incompetence. Back under Obama, President Putin invaded Crimea and annexed it. Under President Obama, he invaded Ukraine. So that's the only reason why we're here. This is Joe Biden's war. And yes, you're right. This president wants to see the killing stop. This brutal war has taken the lives of thousands and thousands of people every single week. And so he wants this war to come to an end as quickly as possible.
So 2 big issues surrounding all of this, and that is, what does Ukraine give up in order to get peace with Russia? What might Russia give up in order to get peace with Ukraine? But then over and above that, there's this idea of security guarantees and what role the United States might play in those. Here's what Caroline said about it yesterday.
The president has definitively stated U.S. boots will not be on the ground in Ukraine, but we can certainly help in the coordination and perhaps provide other means of security guarantees to our European allies. The president understands security guarantees are crucially important to ensure a lasting peace.
So over and above the declaration that no U.S. troops will be on the ground there in Ukraine, do we have any more clarity, Anna, on what these security guarantees might look like for the United States?
Well, as you all can imagine, these are incredibly sensitive conversations that are being had between diplomatic governments, of course, as the president has said. Secretary Rubio and other national security leaders across the administration are taking a look at how these security guarantees could take shape. And as the president said, and as Caroline alluded to yesterday, yes, this will be a big part of delivering lasting peace. But again, I'll go back to the only reason we're having any of these conversations is because of this president's leadership. As Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, as the Finnish President Stubb all said, not just the president has said, this is a deadlock that endured 4 years of killing, of tragic loss brought on by Joe Biden's incompetence. And so, again, the only reason we're having any of these conversations is because of President Trump's ability to break the deadlock, to show vast leadership and make America respected again on the world stage. Because we know, and President Putin admitted himself, this would have never happened if President Trump was in office.
Yeah, it's also recognized by people like the NATO Secretary General and the President of Finland. An issue closer to home here that the president is concerned about, and that's crime here in the District of Columbia, and whether or not the books were being cooked in terms of the crime statistics. Here's what the president wrote on X. D.C. gave fake crime numbers in order to create a false illusion of safety. This is a very bad and dangerous thing to do, and they are under serious investigation for so doing. Until 4 days ago, Washington, D.C. was the most unsafe city in the United States and perhaps the world. Now, in just a short period of time, it is perhaps the safest and getting better every single hour. People are flocking to D.C. again, and soon the beautification will begin. What does the president suspect about the crime statistics that have been reported here in D.C., which seem to be a rather dramatic 26% decrease in violent crime that a lot of people on the street say isn't reflected in their perception of the city?
Yeah, well, I'll note 2 things on that. Number one, it's not just the president rightfully pointing this out. We had a D.C. police commander who was suspended over suspicions of cooking the books on D.C. crime stats. And even still, you have horrific statistics. The fact that D.C. has the 4th highest homicide rate in the country. The fact that if D.C. was a state, which is what Democrats want, as we all know, it would have the highest crime rate in the country. The fact that it outpaces cities like Atlanta, Chicago, New York City, even Compton in these homicide rates. So it's not just anecdotal. anecdotal, John. These are the lived experiences of people in D.C. and, of course, people who visit D.C. This is also proven by the statistics, even despite those concerning allegations of cooking the books. And so this president wants this city to be a beacon for our entire country. This is our nation's capital. And so he wants it to be safe and beautiful again, not just for the thousands of people who live here, but for the thousands of people who visit here and enjoy all of the vast history that our city provides.
Yeah, the chairman of the D.C. Police Union, Greg Pemberton, is suspicious of the statistics as well. Here's what he told us.
Inevitably, you'll have a captain or a commander or sometimes a lieutenant show up on the scene and advise them to take a report for a lesser offense. This is something that's been, unfortunately, part and parcel of the police department for some time, and we're very skeptical that these crime stats are accurate.
So if what he's saying is true, it would appear that this process begins out on the street in the initial charging of criminals, not just some sort of administrative cooking of the books.
Right, and I'll add that the D.C. Police Union, by the way, has been overall very supportive of this effort, because I think anybody who lives here, if you are not a victim of violent crime yourself, I know, me personally, I know so many people who tragically have been affected by the violent crime rates in this city. I know that we had a 3-year-old child just last month who was horrifically killed in the backseat of her family vehicle. I mean, there is no amount of these stories that should be acceptable to anyone. And so this president wants to make sure that D.C. is safe, that people can live their lives peacefully without being the victim of a horrific, violent crime.
Yeah, you know, I was talking with the Attorney General on Monday, and she said that if anybody really appreciates what's going on, it's the rank and file members, the men and women of the Metro Police Department, who say they could really use the help. Anna, good to have you on. Welcome to the program. We'll be seeing a lot more of you, I suspect.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.